So today we're on the 16th Shir, and we're going back to the Sefer maaneh chochom, which we stopped for a couple of weeks to look at. And the reason is because we're not really going to go through every part of maaneh chochom from now on, because it's just very long, and it's all about the same subject. Basically, his whole shita is, like we discussed before, that there's a psak halacha. According to him, there's a psak halacha of the Rambam that there can't be any geula before Mashiach. Okay, so if that's the case, why is there a state of Israel today? How could we make sense out of the Medina? The answer is, according to him, the Medina is not really geula in any shape, way, or form, and the Medina is really just like a limited type of Jewish organization, like the Vad Arba Aratzos, like the Polish Council of the Four Lands. So it's not really a state. Basically, he's taking a state and he's saying it's not a state. It's just like a body that Jews have that makes decisions and has limited power. And therefore, this chumrah of his, that he's so machmir, he says, yes, the Rambam says there cannot be a geula without Mashiach, and it's usher to believe anything to the contrary. This chumrah of his becomes a kula, because now he's able to say that the Medina is that's not a problem right now, the way it is. The Tzionim want to make it into a real geula in the Chanami, so we're against that. We're against the eschalta de geula type of approach. Chabad in general was very against that. Lubavitcher Rebbe was very stark against anybody saying eschalta de geula.
Yeah,
but at the same time,
I read that too. When somebody praised Cook to him, he was actually silent.
Yeah, so he was against eschalta de geula, and Rav Yoel Kahan brings that here. He brings that the Lubavitcher Rebbe said that, but he says that was gufa the way that the Rebbe was able to relate to the Medina so closely. The Lubavitcher Rebbe. Lubavitcher Rebbe had prime ministers coming to his doorstep all the time, and he discussed the intimate matters of security of the Medina with them, and he gave them advice.
Moshe Dayan also?
Yeah, and he gave them Begin. He gave them like, don't give back anything, don't give back to Sinai, don't give back anything. Right? That he was very against giving back land, and he even said that the army should conquer more.
Yeah.
So how could
Damascus?
Right. So how does that stem with anti-Zionism? The answer is because according to Rav Yoel Kahan, the Lubavitcher's anti-Zionism was an anti-Zionism in which, in theory, they were against anybody saying that the Medina should become a geula of any kind or an aschalta de geula. But at the same time, the Medina in its present form is just the Council of the Four Lands. It's nothing. So you're allowed to support it. You're allowed to vote, you're allowed to support it, because as long as you don't believe in it as a geula, you can support it. So that's the yisod of his whole sefer from here on. But I just want to quote a couple of examples and focus in on them, how they contrast with Vayol Moshe. So let's take a look on page Ayin Ches in maaneh chochom, towards the bottom, last two paragraphs. He says, U'kemoishe b'nogea la'adam, Hamaisa b'poel shaloi mechuyev liyos kefi shenifsekes halacha. Just like when it comes to human actions, you have to act according to halacha. Af shagam sha'arei deis heim emes. Even though there are other opinions in the Gemara, and we say elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chaim, right? V'gam ha'perushim. Right? V'gam ha'perushim she'eino al pi derech halacha. Even the other commentators who don't go like the halacha heim emes, they're also true. But I'm in the second to last paragraph on this page. But still, even though the other opinions have truth to them, still we have to have a psak halacha, and we follow whatever the halacha is. Right here, I'm at the word emes here, the last word before the parentheses. Right. Okay. So he said, it doesn't say those words. I stuck that in. So oisay adavar mamish, the same thing that applies to halacha in action. The same exact thing, things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will do in the future. Whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu does, he kafi shenifsika halacha, is according to what the halacha is decided. So this is, like I said, this is his holy shita, that the Rambam is the poisik, and the Rambam paskins that there can't be geula without Mashiach. So the Medina, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu won't do a geula before Mashiach. So what's the Medina? Then the Medina must be nothing. It must be just a council of the Four Lands. Okay? The davar zeh Loi bodisi mi libi chas v'shalom. I didn't make this up. He says, "Mufurish kain b'harba svarim." Many svarim say this, that the psak halacha could affect actions too. Yan sheshamati mikama anoshim me'achug de Satmar. I heard that many people from the Satmar community are saying shekol ha'inyan de psikas halacha nugei rak lanu eich aleinu lisnag. They say that halacha only applies to us, not to Hashem. However, the gula is going to take place. That the psak din cannot affect HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It won't decide how he's going to bring about the gula. So therefore, Navi Raya Lidvarenu Michuvas Chsam Sofer. I'm going to bring a raya from this famous tshuva of the Chsam Sofer. Zal, I'm going to turn the page now. Yoredei Siman Shin Nun Vav. V'zel Shayna. This is the famous tshuva that we've been discussing a lot from the Chsam Sofer. Last tshuva in Yoredei. V'hinei, Reb Hillel brings down from the Gemara in Sanhedrin. Reb Hillel was an Amoira. Not the famous Hillel of Hillel and Shammai. This is Reb Hillel the Amoira. Okay, Omar, he said, Ein Mashiach L'Yisrael. The famous Gemara.
Where is this Chelik?
Chelik is Sanhedrin. The chapter in Sanhedrin. Sadik Testament Aleph, Omar, Ein Mashiach L'Yisrael. He says that there's no Mashiach, meaning Mashiach's not going to come anymore. Pirish Rashi, El HaKadosh Baruch Hu Bi'atzmo Yigalem B'li Shliach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring about the Gula without a human redeemer. Upirish Zeh, Muchrach, who Devadai Gamler Reb Hillel Yesh Geula Ela She'en Mashiach Melech. He says Rashi's pshat is for sure true, because you can't say that Reb Hillel denied the whole redemption. He just says that there won't be a person named, who's the king, who's Mashiach. The Gambozeh less Hilchas Kavase, but the Chsam Sofer says the halach is not like Reb Hillel. The Ha'omer Ein Mashiach. Somebody today who would get up and say, I deny that there's such a thing as Mashiach. The Kim Lake Reb Hillel, and he says, I hold like Reb Hillel. Harehu koifer b'chlal Torah. He's koifer in the Torah. Why? The kaimelon achrei rabim lahatos. We hold that we follow the majority. Kivan sherabu alav chachmei Yisrael. Since the other chachamim, the other Amoraim, outnumbered Reb Hillel, so v'amru delay kavasti, they said not like him. Shuv ein adam ra'yi lihimashich achrov. Therefore, nobody could follow Reb Hillel today. Ad kan l'shoynach Chsam Sofer Zal. So Hari Mefurish Bidvar, we see from his words, Shagam be'inyan hanogea lahan hagasei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu be'oifen hagula. Even when it comes to how HaKadosh Baruch Hu will carry out the redemption, Im HaKadosh Baruch Hu bi'atzmo yigal, whether it's that, like Reb Hillel said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself will do the gula, that's Israel, b'li shliach, so that's Reb Hillel, oy she yigal oy sama yidei Mashiach tidkenu, kedas chachamim, yesh hachra b'zeh. There is a psak halacha, al pi klali halacha. V'yavshach sam sofer sham medaber minogel the klal the yachi v'rab malach karabim. He's talking about that rule that the majority rules. Harei pashat she'ein shum chiluk bein klal zeh l'shar klalim. So Rav Yoel Kahan saying that just like when it comes to the majority, we follow the majority. It's the same thing when we follow, let's say, a psak halacha sefer like the Rambam Yad Chazaka against the other Sfarim. So his point, in context here, his point is that the Zionists could bring other books, other Sfarim, Agadata, Jewish Sfarim that say like them, but we don't care because we have the Rambam. Okay? Psak halacha is like the Rambam.
You could bring
and because they're Pashut, the Chol Pradu Prat, Masha Kasu B'Sifrei HaPoiskim, all the things that the Poiskim writes, B'Nogei L'Hanagasa Shel Kodesh Baruch Hu, B'Inyin Tzchar V'Oinesh, B'Inyin Prati HaGeula, V'Chayot Tziboy, all these things, Hinei Av Sheyesh B'Zeh Kam B'Deis B'Shas, even if you're going to go back and you're going to say, oh yeah, the Rambam Tashik says the Yud Gimel Ikrim, but there are many opinions. Since the din came out like a certain sad, okay, now we come to the contrast with Vayol Moshe. Tur Beis. And here's the quote from Vayol Moshe. Bias HaMashiach B'loi Tshuva, he pluked the B'shas. There's a machlokes in Gemara whether Mashiach could come without Tshuva. V'loi Amar HaRambam Bozeh Shu Machra. The Rambam did not paskin in this machlokes. Why? Shedavar shehu biyad HaKadosh Baruch Hu bi'atzmoi ein loy loy mar shum akra. The Rambam would not paskin on a matter that is on HaKadosh Baruch Hu's. It depends on him. All right. So this is what the Rebbe says Negea to in Sanhedrin Daf Tzadik Zayin. There's a machlokes about Geula B'lai Tshuva. There's Rebbe Lezer. Rebbe Lezer says Ein Yisrael Nigalim El B'Tshuva, and Rabbi Yeshua says no. What's going to happen if the Geula doesn't come? If the Yidden don't do Tshuva, the Geula is never going to come. Elamai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will eventually bring the Geula even without Tshuva. And the Satmar Rebbe goes in Siman Mem and Mem Aleph and Mem Beis. He speaks at length about this, and he says that the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva paskins that Ein Yisrael Nigalim El B'Tshuva, right? He says Asidim Yisrael La'asos Tshuva V'Soif Galusam Miyad Nigalim. The Yidden are going to do Tshuva at the end of Galus, and they're going to be redeemed after they do Tshuva. So the Rambam is paskining like Rebbe Lezer, right?
I'm sorry, so, I think
yeah, I'm not reading inside anymore. I'm speaking outside. I'm just explaining what he said. Mm-hmm. He said he's quoting Yoel Moshe. I'm explaining what Yoel Moshe says. He says that there's this machlokes Rebbe Lezer and Bishua in the Gemara and Sanhedrin, whether there will be Geula without Tshuva or not, right? And the Rambam paskins that there won't be Geula without Tshuva. So Satmar Rebbe has a few kashas on this. Number one, the Rambam seems to be paskining like Rebbe Lezer, and usually the halacha follows Rabbi Yeshua. Secondly, Rabbi Yeshua seems to win over there. If you look at the Gemara, you see they go back and forth with rise. Eventually, Rabbi Yeshua seems to be the winner in the debate. So how could the Rambam paskin like Rabbi Lezer, who was the loser? And the klalim of the Amoraim, Rav and Rabbi Yochanan, other things over there point to the conclusion. Rav and Rabbi Yochanan against Shmuel, point to the conclusion that we paskin like Rabbi Yeshua. And then furthermore, the Rebbe's last kasha is that how could the Rambam B'chlal paskin on something that's not a halacha l'maisa de kashayla, right? It's only what HaKadosh Baruch Hu will do. So therefore, the Rebbe's conclusion is that the Rambam is not paskining on Rebbe Lezer versus Rabbi Yeshua. In Chanami, Rebbe Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua are arguing whether Mashiach will come or won't come without tshuva. But the Rambam is not touching that. What he's saying is, whether or not Mashiach will come, there for sure won't be a kibbutz galius. There won't be a gathering of the Jewish people to Eretz Yisrael before a tshuva happens. So Mashiach might come without tshuva, but that doesn't change the fact that there won't be a gathering of the Yidden. There won't be a kibbutz galius without tshuva. Okay, that's the Rebbe's teretz. So now let's see what Rav Yoel Kahan asks on this. He says, the Rebbe is saying that the Rambam, would not paskin on a debate that's negea to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not negea to us. But I just proved from the Chassam Sofer that we do paskin on things that are amunah shailas. Whether HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring Mashiach as a person, a human being, Mashiach, or no, he'll just do the redemption on his own without a Mashiach, like Reb Hillel. Mm-hmm. And the Chassam Sofer says we paskin like the Rabbanan, not like Reb Hillel. So you see, you are allowed to paskin in a question that's negea to Munah and to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu will do. So that's not like the Satmar Rebbe, who says that l'chayr he can't paskin on that. Okay? Then he says like this. So he says Sarach Ian Gadol. Now I'm in the third line of this paragraph. Sarach Ian Gadol. This what the Rebbe says is very, very shver. He says Kizeh Hepech Chassam Sofer v'kam Sfarim. It's against the Chassam Sofer and many Sfarim. Doesn't say which Sfarim. Ubevadai sheyesh kan eza pleitas hakumas. He says the Satmar Rebbe didn't really mean to write what it looks like he wrote. It's just like the pen spit out the words without really thinking about what he was saying. And he says the kavanah.
This term pleitas hakumas, does it come from something?
Yeah, it's an expression used by many writers.
Where?
I've seen it many places before. I don't know if it comes from Chazal, but it's pleitas hakumas. Is like, your pen, you're writing and accidentally you write something that you didn't mean. He says, "V'kavanos of Yoel Moshe." What the Yoel Moshe really meant.
Kumas is like a Greek word. Yeah, you also have it in Arabic. In Arabic, you have it.
So v'kavanos. Yeah, pleita. Yeah. The kavanas on Vayol Moshe. So what does Vayol Moshe really mean? He shemitzad klalei halacha loy haya loy la Rambam shum hechreya b'dvar halacha kaman. He just means that the Rambam had no way to decide who to paskin like. That's when we can paskin. If we would have a majority, we'd have like a roiv and a miyut, like Yachid v'Rabbim. Yeah, in the Chanami, the Rambam would paskin like the Rabbim. But here it's Rav Lezer against Rav Yeshua, so the Rambam had no way to paskin. That's what he means.
You know that Sefer Mechlam Amar HaPeskan?
Yeah.
Would they have it in there?
I don't know. I don't know if they cover things there after Chazal's time.
You have it?
No.
Well, you've seen that.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah. All right. But when you do have a way of deciding, al pi klalei halacha, b'vadai sheklalei halacha heim hamachriim. He says, in that case, then halacha decides, gam b'negei l'inyanim elu, even when it comes to emunah. Di'im loy toimar kein, because you don't say that, then harei efshar lichpor chas v'shalom gam b'biyas HaMashiach. Then a person today could come, a Jew could come and say, I don't believe in Mashiach. But and he'll come with a taina. Hashem's going to decide how to do the geula. Maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu will decide to do like Reb Hillel, and he'll bring geula without a personal redeemer. Okay? Mm-hmm. So that's in a nutshell. That's his taina on Vayol Moshe. Let's just see now Vayol Moshe inside. Open up Siman Mem. Maimer Shal Shvuah Siman Mem. Towards the end of Siman Mem, though. So, page Nun Daled. Top of the page. Or actually, let's start with the bottom of the page, Nun Gimel. Last few words on the page. Omnam Gam HaRambam Zal. Even the Rambam, he just said that other poskim don't even paskin on things that are negeo when Mashiach comes. The Rif and the Rosh don't even say any halacha about when Mashiach comes. They only talk about today's halacha, present day halacha, not about the Beis HaMikdash and whatever. Omnam Gam HaRambam Zal, but even the Rambam who does paskin on matters of the future, Shemachriya Gam Kol Halachas Af B'Hilchas Al Mashiach Mikol Makom B'Ma She'ein B'Yadeinu, things that are not in our power. El B'Yad HaKadosh Baruch Hu La'aseh. It's only up to Hashem which way to do it. So then Gam HaRambam Zal Einu Machriya. Even the Rambam won't decide on such a thing. U'Kemavur B'Firish HaMishnah B'Perek Chelik. He quotes the Rambam in Pirish HaMishnayis on Sanhedrin. Gabi Plugta Da'aseres HaShvatim Einu Masidim Lachzor. There's a machlokes if the 10 tribes are going to come back in the time of Mashiach. Yeah? So Kosav Sham V'Zel Shoina, and that the Rambam writes, Kvar Zacharti L'cha Pa'amim Rabois. I've mentioned many times already, Shekol machlokes She'iyah Bein HaChachamim She'enoi Bali De Maisa. Any machlokes that's not it doesn't affect our practical actions. El Shehu Emunas Davar. It's just a belief. Bilvad. So Ein Saad Lifsei Halacha Ki'achad Mehem. That we don't paskin halacha like one of them. Okay, so think about this. Is this what Rav Yoel Kahan said? He tried to say, the Satmar Rebbe didn't really mean what he meant. He just meant to say that the Rambam has no way to paskin. He doesn't know which way to paskin. He doesn't know whether the halacha is like Rebbe Lezer or like Rabbi Yeshua. It's not what he's saying here. He's saying it's not just that we don't know how to paskin. We can't paskin. He says anything that's not in the doesn't affect us in our personal lives. It's only something that's negea to believing in something. Emunas davar bilvad ein sad lifsak halacha ke'echad mehem. You cannot paskin halacha like one of them. V'chein kasav oid b'pirish HaMishnah. He says another raya to this from the Rambam's Pirish HaMishnah b'Masechtas Soita. Per Koyanoitel, V'inyan Plukta de Misnavenes V'hoileches. There's a shaila about what happens after a Soita drinks the water that kills her. If, let's say, does she die right away, or does she die a year later, or whatever, right? There's a machlokes about that. So it's a machlokes about what happens. It's not a machlokes that's negea to our own conduct. V'im kain gam bozeh she'ein plukta v'safik im tzarich lasos tshuva. So now he says back to this Rebbe Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Rebbe Lezer says ein Yisrael nigalim el b'tshuva. The gula will only take place after the tshuva, and Rabbi Yeshua says no. The gula could take place before tshuva. So he says gam bozeh she'ein plukta v'safik im tzarich lasos tshuva. They're not arguing whether you have to do tshuva or not. Rebbe Lezer is not saying you don't have to do tshuva, or Rabbi Yeshua rather is not saying you don't have to do tshuva. Sha'af believe bias HaMashiach. He says even if Mashiach's not going to come, hachiv lasos tshuva. In other words, even if we take out of the picture the whole Mashiach, we would still have to do tshuva. We'll kaim kol Torah kula, kol Torah kedosha, ve'aplukta bazeh. So what's the machlokes? Who rak ima Hakadosh Baruch Hu yigaleinu af b'liat tshuva. It's only whether Hakadosh Baruch Hu will come if we don't do tshuva, and whether he'll bring the gula. It's like one of these other machlokes in the Rambam mentions here, the Havei Emunah. It's only a question of belief. So therefore, how could the Rambam have paskin on this? Okay? So I think it's black on white. The Rebbe is saying, not the way Rav Yoel Kahan tries to be mataritz him, but he's really saying that the Rambam cannot paskin on a matter that's up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu how to do it. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, so what do you do with the kasha of Rav Yoel Kahan? Rav Yoel Kahan is asking very stark. He's asking, then a Yid could come today and say, I don't believe in Mashiach. Because he could say, Reb Hillel said that, so why can't I say it? So he's asking stark. So I want to spend a little time trying to answer that question. I think the answer is very simple. The answer is that when it comes to psak halacha, halacha could be negea to what we do, but it can't be negea to emunah. Why not? Why not? Psak halacha can't be negea to emunah. Why not? Because when it comes to what we do, let's say there's a machlokes in Shas about some halacha, right? Like let's say the Chassam Sofer brings an example there. Rebbe Lezer holds you're allowed to cut down a tree on Shabbos in order to make a knife in order to do a bris milah. And the Chachamim hold no, you're allowed to do a bris milah on Shabbos, but you're not allowed to do the hachanas for a bris milah on Shabbos. Famous machlokes in Masechta Shabbos.
That's Kuf Yud?
Kuf Lamed, I think. Kuf Lamed, somewhere around there. So, Perik Rebbe Lezer de Milah. So, it says in Rebbe Lezer's city, they used to actually follow Rebbe Lezer. They used to cut down trees to make the knife, to do bris milah on Shabbos. Cut down the tree, make a fire, melt down the knife. They did the whole work because they held Rebbe Lezer's shita is to make the hachanas on Shabbos. Okay? The Chachamim held not like that. So nowadays, we've accepted the psak of the Chachamim. So the Chassam Sofer says if a Yid would go today and he would follow Rebbe Lezer's shita, we'd kill him. He'd get skila for Chil Shabbos, right? So how is that possible? If Rebbe Lezer did it, something Rebbe Lezer did, a great holy Tana Rebbe Lezer did it, and we're giving someone skila for it, the answer is because there's such a thing as psak halacha. Psak halacha tells you follow the roiv, and that's it. Once the halacha is gepaskins, you follow that shita. Now, why is that? Because the pshat is like this. In halacha, let's say why is there a machlokes Rebbe Lezer and the Chacham to begin with? How do they get to the point that we don't have a clear answer to the question of whether you're allowed to make a hachanas for a bris on Shabbos? How do we get to that point? Because somehow between Matan Torah and the time of Rebbe Lezer, that halacha was either lost or else it was never given. We don't know. It's not like the Chachamim had a Messiah from Har Sinai that you're not allowed to do it, because then how could Rebbe Lezer disagree? And it can't be that Rebbe Lezer had a Messiah from Har Sinai that you're allowed to do it, because then how could the Chacham disagree? It must be neither of them had a clear Messiah from Har Sinai. They didn't know whether you're allowed to cut the tree down or not. They didn't know. But Rebbe Lezer came with his klalim of machshava, of how to learn Torah. He came up with his answer. The Chacham came up with their answer. And we have to follow one or the other. So we go with the roiv against the miyut. Okay? But not that we know that Rebbe Lezer was wrong. We don't know if he was wrong. He might be right. But we go according to the roiv, so we follow the roiv. Okay? That's all when it's negaya to what to do. But let's say you have a machlokes about Amunah. Let's say Reb Hillel. Reb Hillel said there won't be a personal Mashiach. And the Chochom say, yes, there will be a personal Mashiach. So, what are you going to tell me? You're going to tell me the Chochom had a Messiah going back to Har Sinai that there will be a personal Mashiach. How could Reb Hillel disagree? Elamai, Reb Hillel had a Messiah going back to Har Sinai that there won't be one. Then how could the Chochom disagree? Elamai, neither of them had a Messiah, right? So then if neither of them had a Messiah, neither of them knew whether there will be a personal Mashiach, they're both just theorizing, then how are we supposed to know? How are we supposed to come and say halacha karabim against Rabbi Hillel and say, okay, we're going to paskin like the rabbim, and now, there won't be a personal, there will be a personal Mashiach. How are we allowed to do that? How can we know better than them? If they didn't know, how could we know?
Mm-hmm.
Hear my kasha?
Yes.
So Elamai, Muzdach Zayin, the only way to learn this is to say that Reb Hillel was simply wrong. It's not pshat that Reb Hillel had a valid shita and the Chacham had a valid shita and then the Roiv paskin against the Miyut. The pshat is no. Pshat is Reb Hillel never had a valid shita to begin with. He made a mistake. It's possible sometimes some of the Chacham make a mistake. Reb Hillel was not a major Amoira. He's not mentioned on every page of Shas. They probably only mentioned 1 or 2 times in the whole Shas. So he's not a major figure in Shas, and it's possible people make mistakes sometimes. And the Gemara even says on Reb Hillel, Rav Yosef said, "Sharei le'marei le'Reb Hillel." May Reb Hillel's master, may Hashem forgive Reb Hillel for saying what he said. Sanhedrin Tzadik Testament Aleph. Rav Yosef says on Reb Hillel, "Sharei le'marei le'Reb Hillel." Why? Because Reb Hillel made a mistake. It's not you don't find in Reb Lezer says this, the Chacham say that, and the Chacham say Sharei le'marei le'Reb Lezer. You don't find that. Why? Because Reb Lezer has a perfect right to say what he said. But over here, Reb Hillel said something that was kfira. We believe there will be a Mashiach. So Reb Hillel says there won't be. That's kfira. Sharei le'mar. May Hashem forgive Reb Hillel for making this mistake and saying this thing that's kfira. Okay? So, what I'm saying is basically, I'm saying, yes, Rav Yoel Kahan is right. Rav Yoel Moshe disagrees with the Chassam Sofer. He disagrees with him. Because the Chassam Sofer is very shver. The Chassam Sofer is saying something that's it's impossible to say. He's saying that the Chachamim of Reb Hillel, the Rabbim, outnumbered Reb Hillel, and now we have to follow the Chachamim, we have to believe in Mashiach. Well, excuse me, if the Chachamim didn't have a Messiah, that there will be Mashiach, how could we believe in it? If they didn't know, how could we know? Elamai must be that the whole Reb Hillel was a mistake. But in a case like, let's say, the Satmar Rebbe's case, where you have Reb Lezer versus Reb Yeshua. Reb Lezer says Geula will not take place until there's tshuva. And Reb Yeshua says, yes, Geula will take place when there's no tshuva. Yeah? That's a machlokes where neither of them made a mistake, right? It's not like Reb Hillel. Neither of them made a mistake. They're both great Amoraim, great Tanoim. They said something. So you can't paskin which one's right. You can't paskin which one's right. Not just we don't know which one to paskin like, but you can't paskin because they didn't know. So if they didn't know, how are we supposed to know? And that's what the Satmar Rebbe is saying here. Okay, so now what the Satmar Rebbe says is also, he continues and he says, so what is the Rambam's psak? When the Rambam says there won't be geula without tshuva, what is the Rambam saying? I just said a few minutes ago. What is he saying? He's saying that in terms of whether Mashiach will come without tshuva, yeah, on that there's a machlokes. But in terms of kibbutz galius, gathering in the exiles, that cannot take place without tshuva. Mm-hmm. So why is the Rambam able to say that? Because first of all, it's not in dispute. There's no machlokes and shas about that. But second of all, it's negei l'maisa, because whether Hashem will send Mashiach without tshuva or he will or won't, that's Hashem's business. That's not negei to us. But when it comes to geula, kibbutz galius without tshuva, that is negei to us, because the Tzionim, yeah, that's exactly what the Tzionim did. They said, let's make a kibbutz galius before tshuva. So the Rambam is very negei l'maisa. Okay, it's very negei l'maisa. So now, basically, we're undermining Rav Yoel Kahan's whole point here, because Rav Yoel Kahan's whole point is the Rambam, when he says there won't be geula without Mashiach, he's saying a psak on facts. A psak on facts, meaning that if there's now a Medina today, and it seems to contradict that Rambam, will be matarit that the Medina is just a avad arba ratzis. It's a nothing. But I'm saying no. The Rebbe never meant to say that. The Medina, the Rambam is not a psak on facts. The Rambam is a psak on halacha l'maisa. You can't do a kibbutz galuyos without Mashiach. You're not allowed to. Physically, you could. The Zionists did it, right? Mm-hmm. The Zionists have 6 million Jews over there now, maybe more now, right? They did it. They did it. It's not that it's impossible to do it, it's that it's usher to do it. That's the word. Now I realize what Rav Yoel Kahan is arguing here. He's making an interesting argument. He's saying the Chassam Sofer actually meant like this. In a Chanami, Lagabi Amuna, if there's a suffix that the Amoraim didn't know something, then there's no way we can know it. But here's the pshat. Rabbi Hillel said there won't be a personal Mashiach. The Rabbanan said there will. The Rabbanan outnumbered Rabbi Hillel, and now HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kav Yochel has to listen to the Rabbim against the Miut. So he has to bring a personal Mashiach. So in the Chanami they didn't know, but we today do know. How do we know? Because we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu follows the Rabbim, and he's going to bring a personal Mashiach. That's what Rav Yoel Kahan wants to learn Pshat in the Chassam Sofer. And he wants to, and Zoy Vait, that he's matmiyah on the Satmar Rebbe. How could the Satmar Rebbe not hold of that? But Lanius Daiti, it's Pashat, the Satmar Rebbe didn't hold of that. He didn't hold that a Kodesh Baruch Hu is mukhrach to follow the majority, to the point that we're so, there is a concept of not the Daiti the Kudshabichu Basaruba, by the Gemara with Shevna. It's true there's a concept of that, but he's not mukhrach. Because Baruch Hu is a koil yachol, he's not mukhrach to follow the rabbim of the chachamim, to the point that we can say ani mamin be'emunah shlema that Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to follow the roiv. So therefore that's not the svara. The Satmar Rebbe held that's pashut, that we don't paskin, the Rambam doesn't paskin on a machlokes that's negeya only to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Okay, so al tzamuna we don't know, and al being machriach Kodesh Baruch Hu the roiv, that he didn't hold of either. So therefore, the Satmar Rebbe didn't hold of what this Chassam Sofer is saying. Besides the fact that I don't know if the Chassam Sofer really meant Rabbi Yoel Kahan's point. It's much more that he's saying. It's more of a psak, just like Rebbe Lezer and the Rabbanan, Lagabi the shaila of machshirei mila. There, the Chassam Sofer says we paskin like the Rabbanan, and you're not allowed to follow Rebbe Lezer. It sounds a little bit more like the Chassam Sofer's point is you're not allowed to follow the emunah of Reb Hillel, because the Rabbanan outnumbered Reb Hillel. Halacha karabim, you have to follow the emunah of the Rabbanan. Not like Rav Yoel Kahan saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to listen to the Rabbanan. So, Anis Daiti, not so pashut that the Chassam Sofer meant that, and even if he did mean that, the Satmar Rebbe is for sure disagreeing with that. Okay, let's go to the next point now. I'll show you something else that the maaneh chochom says. Turn to page Ayin Daled. It's the next page after this. I printed it here. Let's see. Let's take a look. L'chayra yesh lahakshos. This is at the bottom of the page here. L'chayra yesh lahakshos mimasha kasev kuntres ala gula v'ala tmura. Satmar Rebbe Sefer ala gula, right? Reish Simon Nun Aleph. V'zel l'shoynai v'hinei af shehitzlichu harbe. Even though the Zionists were very successful, mikomakam adayin lo higiu l'hatzlachas Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar paroi shemalchu al kol ha'olam kula. That the Zionists did not conquer the whole world. V'gam heim lo ba'u l'hatzlachazu b'pam achas. And even Nebuchadnezzar and Paroi didn't get this kind of power all at once. Elohayu moisifin v'holchim b'chol pam yoiser. They just slowly built up to the point where they got the whole world under their power. Berum hatzlachasam b'koyach chasamach mem lavu lidei avoid zar rachmana litzlan. They brought with the power of the samach mem, that these nations conquered the world and spread their idolatry. He says, ani mefached moed. He says, now when it comes to the Zionists, I'm very afraid of this. Mi yodea im lo yasu oid milchamos. The 6-day war was bad enough, the Rebbe says. Well, let's say, what's going to be next? What are they going to conquer next? Mi yodea, who knows what they're going to get? It's going to be a test to the Jewish people in Emunah. The Miloshin Zeh, he says now, this is the end of the
when he says what's going to conquer next, what? I mean, by land or something else?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe land.
No, or like what you mentioned in your book. Excellent book. How they're going to cause going to sin? Is he referring to that? Or
I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's talking about the Zionists becoming more powerful, even more powerful than they were after the 6-day war. So he's saying
like corrupting everybody's morals.
Yeah, or maybe having more hatzlacha in wars. Maybe there'll be another war, and next time they'll have the whole Egypt and the Syria, and one of the Israeli generals said after the 6-day war that it was no, like they said it's a nay, so yeah, okay, it was the many and the few. One of them said no, you know what, the Zionists could have conquered the whole Middle East if they wanted to in a few days.
Well, look, you heard of the Yonah plan?
Well, no.
Oh, that's another thing about how the Zionists conquered by dividing them up by having the Arabs fight amongst themselves, like with the Kurds, the Sunni Shias.
Anyway, so he says basically the Rebbe's writing in 67, but he's saying who knows what's going to be next. So Rav Yoel Kahan says on this, the Miloshin Zeh mashma she'efshel liyos. He says it's mashma from this that it's possible shebekoyach hasamach mem yagiu chas v'shalom la'atzlachas Nebuchadnezzar u'paroi limloich al kol ha'oil and kulei. But the Zionists might end up conquering the whole world. V'chein muchach, just a little further. V'chein muchach gam sham be'oisei simen Amid Tzadik Dal, the same siman in Alagula, V'zel Shainai, she'amelech haMashiach yimloich al kol ha'olam kulei. He says that the Mashiach will rule over the whole world. V'noida ki heim medami matzmam l'nyane agula. After the pumayu, that the Zionists can consider themselves to be acting out the gula. V'oisim kama pu'ulois v'dimyonis l'damois l'nyanim she'Mashiach. They pretend that they're like the Mashiach, right? U'mi yuchal leda ad kama. So then, who knows how much they could go, how far they could go with this? V'akavel Hashem Yisborach. I hope to Hashem she'yishmor amoy b'nei Yisrael shaloyla haviyom l'nisyonis chamurim yoiser kol kach. I hope that Hashem won't bring greater nisyonis upon the Jewish people. Avol mi yodea ad kama ha'avon goyim. Who knows how much the sin will cause? It could be the sin of everybody dancing after the 6-day war will cause the Samach Mem to have even more hatzlacha and making the Zionists conquer even more. The Gam Me'loshen Zeh Muchach. Rebbe says from Rav Yoel Kahan says from these words, she'efshel liyos nisayin gadol kazeh ad she'yimluchu al kol ha'olam kulei. Dugmas Melech HaMashiach. It could be the Zionists will end up being dominating the world. The Tamua.
This is much from
Alagula.
Oh wow. If the Narja would have written that they would call him an anti-Semite, right?
Well, yeah, it's like these conspiracy theories, right? The Zionists are trying to conquer the world. Elders of Zion, right? Okay, the Tamua. Oh, so Rav Yoel Kahan asks on this: if the Zionists are going to rule the world, then they won't be under the nations anymore. To whom are they going to be under? How is it possible that the Zionists will have such a
Gula is this?
Nun Aleph.
Wow.
He says, how is it possible for the Zionists to be free from Shibud Malchus? We said that they're, Ein Bein Olam Hazel Imoysim Mashiach El Shibud Malchus Bovad, right? There's a prediction of Chazal that there will not be freedom from Shibud Malchus before Mashiach. So, and the Rambam paskins that way. So the question is, how can it be? How can the Satmar Rebbe imply that it could be that they'll be free from Shibud Malchus? In other words, Rav Yoel Kahan is saying basically now the Zionists in their little Medina and Eretz Yisrael, that doesn't bother me. That's not freedom from Shibud Malchus, because that's just the forelands. That's just a little Jewish organization that has to listen to America and whatever. So that's not called a freedom from Shibud Malchus. But what bothers me is, kol olam kulai. That bothers me. So how could the Satmar Rebbe say that? He says, "V'lachein barer shebavadai lo niskavin chas v'shalom she'efshel liyos mitzias kazu." The Satmar Rebbe never meant what he said. This is his derech. Whenever he has a problem with the Satmar Rebbe, he just said the Rebbe didn't mean it. Satmar Rebbe never meant it. She'im luchal kol olam kulai kizek kfira gemura. That would to believe such a thing would be kfira about b'masha kosta b'torah shalifnei b'yis Mashiach lo yacheres m'shuv malchus v'meila ein shaykh shetia mitzias kazu she'im luchal kol olam kulai. It can't happen. Okay. And he goes on over there to say the Satmar Rebbe never really meant it. He just meant to say, to be against Zionism. But obviously, we know Satmar Rebbe didn't mess around like that. When he said something, he meant it. So what did he mean? Obviously, he's not going with Rav Yoel Kahan's whole shita that when the Rambam says something, it's a psak halacha that it can't be otherwise. No, not going with that. He's going that it could be. It's possible for because of the sins of the Jewish people and because of the Samach Mem and whatever, because the Zionists have a desire, they have Bechira, they could go against Hashem, they could decide to do something that's wrong. It's possible. It's not impossible, but it's wrong. Just like the Medina today. Let's not kid ourselves. The Medina today is not the Vad Arba Ratzis. The Medina today is also a Cheres from Shliba Malchus. If someone's an Israeli citizen, they're not an American citizen. They're under the Israeli government. The Israeli government doesn't have to listen to anybody before it does things.
That's right.
Any more than any other country has to listen. If they go and blow up a mosque or they blow up a church or something, there are going to be people angry at them. It's true. But that doesn't mean that they're any less free than any other country. Every country is the same way.
So if an Israeli citizen is not... He's not under
America. He's under the state of Israel. Let's say that France or England would go and blow up something. Let's say France is a Christian country. They go blow up a shul somewhere. Mm-hmm. A lot of people would be angry at them, right? If a Muslim country would blow up a church, all the Christian countries would be angry at them. It's not any different. The state of Israel's level of chayris is not any different from any other country. And plenty of countries take aid from America. Just like they get $3 billion from America, so the Egyptians also get $3 billion from America. Or something
I think they get a little bit less.
A little bit less, okay. But they're also dependent. Plenty of countries are heavily dependent.
A lot of criminals run away to Israel, especially pedophiles.
Oh, could be, okay. So that's what I want to show you, that he's showing you that the Vayom Moshe doesn't hold like him. He's showing you the Satmar Rebbe doesn't hold like him, but he's denying it. He's saying, "Oh yeah, the Rebbe didn't mean it. The Rebbe did mean it." Okay, let's look at one more Mar Mokum.
You could erase that part.
Yeah. Okay.
I just have to say that as part of the design. But that's famous, That's famous.
Next page, Pei Aleph. So here he's in the middle of his criticism of the Satmar Rebbe and his contrast with the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Do they sell Yoel Moshe in the farm stores in Crown Heights?
I don't know. Can't tell you.
You said your book is sold.
Well, I don't know if it's sold there. I put it in 770.
Oh wow!
I put it in there, but it's not. But okay.
Oh, beautiful.
All right. Anyway, let's go on. So, Avidram Seder Shachris Shalchoel. Okay, so what he's commenting on here, I was just about to say, is that he says the Lubavitcher Rebbe's derech was to use only psak halacha. Psak halacha of the Rambam, there can't be a gula without Mashiach, period. And the Zionists have 100 Sfarim on their side, so we don't care. We have a Rambam on our side, the Rambam is the Poisik. But Satmar Rebbe, he brings...
Which edition did he put out with it? The censored or uncensored one?
No, I'm talking about Achakaloi.
Oh, I thought they're talking about your other book, the biography. No. That you said is sold in this farm.
Maybe, I don't know.
I thought I heard you told me that.
Not sure. Anyway, Achakaloi is a good sefer to put in 770. It sounds like it's about Mashiach, and people pick it up. Anyway, yeah. So, what was I going to say? So the Satmar Rebbe, when his derech is when he goes to take apart Zionism, he brings all these Agadatas and Midrashim and Svarim, all kinds of Svarim. And he says, that's wrong. Why is that wrong? Because the Zionists have their own Svarim. So you, Satmar Rebbe, you have 100 Svarim on your side. Yeah, but Menachem Kasher has also 100 Svarim on his side. So, you know what I mean? What are you better than him? So so he says one example of a Zionist sefer that's on their side is the Avodram. Let's read this inside now. But Avodram Seder Shachris. Avodram was a Rishon who discusses the Siddur. Okay, commentary on the Siddur and the halachas of the Siddur. So Seder Shachris Shel Chol, the Shmon Esrei of weekday. B'perusha l'Shmon Esrei le'achar shemevar kol bracha b'fnei atzmo. He explains every bracha. U'mevar Seder habrachas. He explains the order of the brachas. The Kosev Sham, and he writes as follows. He says, "Be'inyan Seder brachas miteka b'shofar ve'elach." Starting from the word teka b'shofar gadol. He says, "V'kivan shenis kavtzu galius na'aseh din b'rishayim." Once we say the brachas are in order of what's going to happen in the future. So the first thing is the ingathering of the exiles, right? And then din. Melech ohev tzedakah mishpat, right? There'll be din. Na'aseh din b'rishayim. Shalachein le'achar teka b'shofar gadol oimrim hashiva shoftenu. Ki din b'rishayim. Punishment of the wicked shaykh le'v'hashiva shoftenu. Shoftaich. V'kiven shena'aseh din b'rishayim. Once we punish the Rishayim, kalu haminim, the heretics disappear. Birkas haminim. V'kiven shekalu haminim, Mr. Memis karnos hatzadikim. The pride of the tzadikim is lifted up. And that's bracha the Birkas ala tzadikim. V'heichan Mr. Memis karnos hatzadikim, Yerushalayim. Where does that happen? In Yerushalayim. Because when Yerushalayim. V'kiven shabal Yerushalayim, ba David. And after that, David comes, which is Mashiach. Birkas es semach David. So Harei Mefurish, we see from the words, B'dvarav, Shekibutz Galias Tia Kama v'Kama Shlavim Lifnei Bias Ben David, that the gathering of the exiles will happen many, many stages before the coming of Mashiach. Okay? Mm-hmm. So you see the Zionism is correct. You see you can have a Kibbutz Galias before Mashiach. This is one of the Zionist rayas. V'sham li'achari zeh maybe b'shem ha'riva, shavav brachas ha'rishonis. Okay, we're not going to read all this now. I don't have time. But
what's Riva stand for?
It's one of the Bali Tosfos. Okay, let's skip down. Bottom paragraph here. Proof the Zionists bring midivrei havudram hanal v'chein mashim mechichim me'oid kama mefarshim v'gam meharbe midrashi chazal heimoy chachas chazakas she'ein lahashiv aleim. That these are strong proofs, and he says there's no way to answer up these proofs. They're not worse than any of the proofs in Vayel Moshe. Okay? So, and then the Hemshech he says, but the reason I'm against them is because I have a Rambam. So I don't care. I don't care what the other Sfarim say. I have a Rambam. The Rambam is the Posek, and he says what he says. But he says the Satmar Rebbe, whose derech is to bring all the Sfarim. So the Satmar Rebbe has a few Sfarim on his side, but the Tzionim have their Sfarim. So how do you know who to follow? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's first take a look in Vayel Moshe and see what he answers on this, because this raya really, it's not really.
Perhaps it's necessary to look into Alagudo sometimes. No?
I know, but in this case, Vayel Moshe answers this already. Look in Siman Nun Zayin. Shal Shvuos Siman Nun Zayin. He says like this: Amnam be'emes midivri Yerushalmi be'atzmoi efshel hashvoisam bli machloikis. Ki af acher bias ben David loitis pashet malchusai ad sheyachzer kol Yisrael b'tshuva. He says first there'll be a coming of Mashiach, right? But he won't be the king over the whole world yet. He'll be just a very localized leader. And then the Yidden will do tshuva. The first thing that Mashiach will do to prove that he's Mashiach, who sheyachzir kol Yisrael l'daso emes. He'll bring all the Yidden back, make them all do tshuva. Im kain ein lahamin boy klal terem sheyachzir kol Yisrael l'tshuva. You can't believe in Mashiach until he does this step. So you can't have a kingdom at that point. So there's a point in time when Mashiach's here. He's here. He's doing his job. He's making everyone do tshuva, but he doesn't have a kingdom yet. V'amalbim pirish b'psukim shebetchilas ha'isgalas melech HaMashiach lo yeh lo melucha ad sheyachzir kol Yisrael b'tshuva. He won't have a melucha until he makes the Yidden do tshuva. V'im kain efshar sheyavoy Eliyahu u'Mashiach Moshe v'Aaron imahem. There'll be a tchis amesim. Moshe and Aaron will get up. V'adayin lo nispashit malchus beis David. And still, the kingdom of Mashiach won't spread yet. Okay? Skip to the paragraph after that. Uvazeh hevanti siddur habrachas b'gemara Megillah daf Yud Zayin. He says this explains the order of the brachas of Shmoneh Esrei. This is the same thing the Avodram says. So it's not really an Avodram. This Zionist proof is not really the Avodram. It's really from the brachas in Shmoneh Esrei, which is the Zionists really bring the raya from there. I don't think they bring from the Avodram. They bring from the Gemara and Megillah. The Ema Bar Smecha, when he brings the raya, he brings it from the Gemara and Megillah. Okay, so Gemara Megillah daf Yud Zayin shebirkas hashiva shoiftenu kvar yishayna hu al shem akastu v'yashiva shoiftaich v'yoyatzaich v'al yidei zeh kalu apoishim u'mitrememes keren atzadikim v'achar kach nivneis Yerushalayim v'kivin nivneis Yerushalayim ba David. So you see that Mashiach is the last thing. Okay. Mavur b'medrash Yalkut Shimoni Yishaya v'yashiva shoiftaich zeh Moshe v'Aaron v'yoyatzaich zeh David Yerushalayim. That these tzaddikim will arise from the dead earlier before Mashiach comes. V'imkei mavur b'siddur habrachas, we see from the order of the brachas sheyiyu etzleinu Moshe v'Aaron David Yerushalayim v'yataru es Yisrael v'yivnu es Yerushalayim, they'll build Yerushalayim v'yachar kach yehei malchus beis David. V'imkei ein stir b'masha omer shebinyan beis hamikdash kodim l'malchus beis David. Now we understand this is something that Rav Yoel Moshe speaks about earlier here, that there's a Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi is in Meister Sheni. He says that it's possible to have Binyan Beis Hamikdash before Malchus Beis David. Af sheyu Moshe v'Aaron b'Binyan Beis Hamikdash ve'en tzarich lasos machlokes. So what he's saying basically is it's possible to have stages of the Gula when Mashiach is here already. B'yafei Toyar, I think. Oh. Yeah, it's possible to have a Binyan Beis Hamikdash and many stages of the Gula when Mashiach is here, because he said before in the first paragraph, Mashiach is going to be here, but he's just not going to be ruling yet. He'll be doing the tshuva stage, and still. Building of Yerushalayim and all that stuff will happen before Mashiach actually reaches his full level of Melucha. So he's answering the kasha of the brachas of Shmoneh Esrei. Yeah, the brachas of Shmoneh Esrei, Tekava Shofar Gadol, is talking when Mashiach came already, but he's not as on the madrega to be called a ruler. Okay. Second teretz, Vayoel Moshe Siman Chaf Beis. Flip back, Siman Chaf Beis, and here he speaks about the Ravid. This is the Ravid on Masechta Edius. Okay, he's quoted in Chaf Aleph. Ravid says that before the Mashiach brings back Klal Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael, there'll be another stage. He'll bring us to. He says, "V'chein limoyis Mashiach kishiyigal oisam Hakadosh Baruch Hu lo yikansu miyad haaretz." They won't go directly into Eretz Yisrael. Avol yoylich oisam lemidbar ho'amim. He'll bring them into the nation's wilderness. Kenevur Yechezkel Chaf. Okay, so on that he says, "Uvazeh hevanti seder habrachas shebirkas Shmoneh Esrei hamavur b'Masechta Megillah daf Yud Zayin habeis she'achar birkas hashiva sheyashuvu shoiftim kavor yishayna oimim v'lam alshinim she'al yidei hashoiftim kol ha'wazeinim v'achkach misraim keren hatzadikim v'shuv nimneis Yerushalayim nimtzeis binyan Yerushalayim yiyeh achar kach." You see, there'll be a Tekava Shofar Gadol, there'll be an ingathering of the exiles before Yerushalayim and before Mashiach. V'yesh l'dayik haloi maschilim b'birkas Tekava Shofar shehu kibbutz Golias v'imkein lo yiyeh adayin nivnei Yerushalayim laheichon yiskavtzu. When they get gathered in, where are they going to go if there's no Yerushalayim yet? And he doesn't really ask the kasha here, but the bigger kasha is if there's no Mashiach yet, who's going to be leading them? Well, but according to the Ravid, we answer the question: Sha'kibbutz harishon yiyeh lemidbar nicha. That the first gathering that Mashiach will bring them, that's going to be to the midbar. It's not going to be there, Eretz Yisrael. V'chein anu oimrim b'tfiloseinu v'san nes l'kabetz gluyasenu. Gam sim abrachahu b'stama mekabet nidchei amo Yisrael. He'll gather them in. V'loy amar lehechan. Doesn't say to where. Masha oimrim be'emtza abracha v'kabseinu le'artseinu. Says mi'arba kan v'zoretz le'artseinu. Nusach Sfard, right? Nusach Sfard says le'artseinu. He says starach loimra kavana tachlis hakibutz hu b'avo yacher kach le'artseinu. That the end goal is to come to Eretz Yisrael. Aval hakibutz harishon, but the first stage lo yiyeh le'Eretz Yisrael el midbar ha'amim. And then he goes on, he says there's some people who don't have the Gersa Li'artseinu. And the Satmar Rebbe says his own father, the Kedushas Yom Tov, didn't say Li'artseinu. The Siddur that the Satmar Rebbe davened from, the Tfilas Yisharim Siddur, the B'ditchever Siddur, doesn't have the word Li'artseinu. Anyway, the point is, but even if you do have the word Li'artseinu, it's only talking about the end goal, but the interim goal of the first kibbutz is to go to the Midbar Ha'amim. So, in summary, we've got two terutzim on this kasha of the Avudraham, which the maaneh chochom brings from the Avudraham. It's really not the Avudraham, it's really Gemara and Megillah. And the Satmar Rebbe has two terutzim on this. Number one, his teretz is that there's two stages in Bias and Mashiach. Mashiach will come, and then he won't be ruling yet by Tekab Shofar, but he'll be here, right? And then the second teretz is what he's saying here in Chaf Beis, which is that the first kibbutz galus is only going to be to some interim place, some midbar, and then later when they come to Eretz Yisrael, that's going to be the last part of Shemon Esrei, when Mashiach comes. Okay, so what I want to say about this though is that both of these terutzim you could ask on. Number one, the teretz that he says that there'll be two stages in Bias and Mashiach, it's not really mefurish in the Gemara Megillah like that. The Gemara says the Kabbah for God doesn't mention anything about Mashiach, and then the last stage it says yes, Tzemach David Avdecha. Once Yerushalayim is built, then Ba David, then David's going to come. Mm-hmm. So it's still a shtickle, not mashma that Mashiach will be here before. The other teretz that he says about the Ravid, that there's going to be a midbar in between, and he's going to gather them to a midbar, it's also doichik, because that's not a good thing. The fact that we're going to be gathered to the midbar is a punishment. We're going to be gathered there, there's going to be a birur. Like Yechezkel says, there's going to be the bad, the sinners will be, weeded out. And
you write that in your book.
Only the good Jews will come into Eretz Yisrael.
By Victor Miller, right?
Exactly. Well, what Victor Miller said about the whole Galus, that every stage in Galus, sinners are being weeded out. There's going to be
but he quotes that passing of Yechezkel.
Yeah, he does.
See how you read your book.
Yeah. But this thing is a bad thing. So in Shemon Esrei, we're praising Hashem for good things. We're talking about our hope for the Gula. It's a doichik to say that we're referring to something bad there. That we're saying, oh yeah, thank you Hashem for being mekabetz us to a midbar where most of us are going to die. Is that what it means? Mm-hmm. So it's doichik. It's doichik to say that. So both terutzim are a little bit shver. But what you could say is, you could say a very simple teretz, that Tekab Shofar Gadol L'Cheiriseinu, I don't know about the L'Cheiriseinu is mashma Cheris from Galus, right? It's mashma we're not going to be in Galus anymore before Mashiach comes. I don't know if that's going to shtim. What I was going to say is that there could be some type of kibbutz galus before Mashiach, not kibbutz galus proper, like Jews are streaming in from all over the world, Aliyah B'chaima, but if one or two Yidden move to Eretz Yisrael here and there during Galus, until there becomes a community. At certain points during history, there was no Jewish community there, right? Time of the Ramban, there was nobody there. There was in Eretz Yisrael. Mm-hmm. Time of the Rambam, not a single Jew was allowed to live in Yerushalayim. Mm-hmm. So afterwards,
and Avriyaz Ravitsky writes it's because of the Shalosh Shavuos.
Well,
in the appendix.
Well, look, the Shalosh Shavuos applied in the time of the Ottoman Empire too, but Jews came during the Ottoman Empire.
But this is what Avriyaz Ravitsky. That's what.
But I'm saying that can't be the whole explanation.
Did you ever read that book, baby?
No, I didn't.
You could add a little read that, especially the one and then the three old school time.
I'd like to read it, but what I'm saying is that just think about it for a second. In the time of the Ottoman Empire, in the 1800s, there was a community of 50, 60,000 Jews in Yerushalayim or in Eretz Yisrael. You can't say that it's aser for those people to live there. They weren't. Those Jews didn't violate the Shalosh Shavuos. So Elamai, so why did they live then and they didn't live in the time of the Rambam? Because there were times in Galus when the Goyim didn't let, the Crusaders didn't let a single Jew live in Yerushalayim.
But that means they lived in other cities.
But not too many.
Like, there was a community of Jews, like near Safas called the Most Arbim. The Moruskos, you heard of that? They lived like near the Pekin area.
Oh yeah, Pekin I heard of, yeah, sure.
Yeah, they lived in Eretz Yisrael, they're like real Palestinian Arab Jews. They lived there for 2,000, 3,000. They were called the Moruskos or the Most Arbim, something like that. Mm-hmm. The Moruskos.
I heard of something like this, yeah. So it's possible that there were a few, but there weren't that many. And gradually, after the Ottomans were kind and they let Jews come, so people came. There were the Sephardim, then the Ashkenazim, the Talmidei Gra, Talmidei Baal Shem Tov. There were people coming. So that could be the kibbutz galuyos that we're talking about in that bracha. We're not talking about the kibbutz galuyos of Zionism, which is forbidden. We're talking about people coming on a personal basis. Each Yid personally feels he wants to be oil and ruchnius, he wants to come to Eretz Yisrael, and he comes to live in Eretz Yisrael. But it doesn't have to be talking about anything to do with Geula.
And they spoke that dialect too.
That's what I want to say. So the fact that this bracha is in Shemoneh Esrei way before Mashiach doesn't pose a problem. Also, one more thing I want to show you. Look at the end here. Rav Yoel Kahan is a Lubavitcher chassid, right? Mm-hmm. Big Lubavitcher. So he asked this kasha from Avodram, and he seems to say there's no teretz to it. Well, I don't know if he was aware that the Marshab, this fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, deals with this kasha directly. And this is in Igros Kodesh Marshab, Chelik Aleph, Siman Kuf Lamed.
That's the one which is highly quoted, right?
Yeah, so it says, Motzei Shabbos Yud Daled Shvat Tov Reish Samach Daled, 1904, Lubavitch, and he's writing to someone named Mordechai Yitzchak Shur. You turn the page. It's kind of a long brief over here. I'm not going to read everything, but it's against Zionism. And if you go, it has a lot of Kabbalah in it, a lot of quotes from the Zohar.
He brings it, or you're bringing it?
Who?
Yoel Kahan brings it?
No, he doesn't bring it. That's my point. He asked this kasha from the Avodram as if it's like an unanswerable kasha, and yet his own fifth Rebbe dealt with the kasha. Let's see. Turn to page Shin Yud. I mean, in his pages. Like a couple pages later. Turn one more page. Last paragraph on the page. Umash shekasuv b'siddur al pi tihilasoi b'kal chasidim the kibbutz galuyos yiyeh koydem l'bias Mashiach. Okay, this kasha that we're asking, that first will be kibbutz galuyos and then will be Mashiach. Hainu lefisha hagiluyim de Mashiach lamata. The revelation of Mashiach down here in this world. That will only happen after the ingathering of the exiles. I don't know what that means. And then he says, "V'chein hu al pi pashut the meloshen shaykh the meloshen shaykh la'achashis kabtzu hagaliyis davka afsha kibbutzi al yadoi." Even though the kibbutz galuyos will happen through him. Before the kibbutz galuyos, he's not in the position of power. He's there, Mashiach is there, but he's not in power. This is very similar to what the Satmar Rebbe said in Siman Nun Zayin, we just quoted. Mashiach will be here before kibbutz galuyos, but he won't be in power. The Ein Melech B'loi Am. Okay, there can't be a king without a people. So before Mashiach finishes gathering the Jewish people in, he's not a king yet. Then he'll be in power over them. Then he goes into his Kabbalah again, and then he says, okay, I'm not going to read all this now. But basically, he says the same teretz that the Satmar Rebbe said. That's all I wanted to show you. He says that Mashiach will be here, but he won't be in power. Oh, and then look at the last paragraph on page Shin Yud Aleph. Uvazeh yumtak. Now we understand Ma de Isa b'Yerushalmi Meister Sheni Perakei. The same Yerushalmi that the Satmar Rebbe is grappling with. Amasnisin tetnai hoya shekishibana beis hamikdash lois hamerish the beis hamikdash asi lihi banais koidem le'malchus beis David. That beis hamikdash could be built before Mashiach comes. With the Gemara Megillah Daf Yizayin and Beis Isa Gam came to Kivin Shnivus Yerushalayim Ba'ad David. So according to this, we understand that, like he said before, Mashiach is going to be here, but he's not going to be in power yet. So that is the same teretz as the Satmar Rebbe's teretz in Nun Zayin. Yeah. Very interesting stuff. Okay, let's stop for tonight.
Interesting.